Trump is going scorched earth on DeSantis. It seems like when I look at Trump's feed on Truth Social, every single day he's pummeling DeSantis. And in fact, Debbie and I were watching Trump's most recent ad that he's put out, an ad that actually in some ways makes you laugh. It makes you laugh because it's so Trumpian and it's so over the top. And the basic theme of the ad is that Trump created DeSantis. So DeSantis was this kind of absolute nobody. Get the impression he was just some guy on the street who decided to sort of run for governor. He had absolutely no chance in the Republican primary, let alone in the governor's race. Then to the rescue rides in Trump. Trump basically anoints DeSantis, and then DeSantis has a glowing future. So Trump's point is that this guy who's claiming to be this kind of better alternative to me is none other than, you may say, my political offspring. So it's a condescending ad and a little demeaning, of course, to DeSantis. But it also makes you laugh because it's like, wait a minute. I mean, this may be true. Trump is from a generation earlier than DeSantis. So no surprise, a lot of people have come up through the Trump movement. Think of it. A lot of people came up through Reagan. Pretty much the entire generation of Republican leaders, from Newt Gingrich to Jack Kemp, so many others came up through the Reagan Revolution. And so this is something actually Trump should be proud of, but not in the negative sense of bashing those people and saying, hey, guys, listen, you would have been nowhere because of me. It would be more appropriate for Trump to say really the opposite. I'm proud of DeSantis. I'm actually glad that he's gone on to do a good job in Florida. Now, listen, Trump can make the case and should make the case that, look, I was cheated out of the 2020 election. I did a really good job. I've sort of earned the right to be reelected. And Biden is absolutely horrible. And I know how to fix the things. I've actually learned some things while I was in the White House. No one has that kind of experience. I have a full understanding of how deep the so-called deep state goes. I know how to root it out. So I'm sort of paving the way for the next generation of leaders to take over after my turn. But this is not the case that Trump is actually making. So for this reason, I think that this attack on DeSantis, or this wave of attacks on DeSantis, is not really working. Now, there are Trumpsters, and of course, I had Caroline Levitt on the show. She's representing the Trump back, and she was like, hey, listen, it is working. Trump is decisively leading DeSantis in the Republican fold. And moreover, that lead has widened. And while I agree that's true, I think that first of all, Trump would be leading DeSantis anyway. And second of all, the lead has widened, I think, in part because of the Trump arrest, because of the Trump indictment. People feel a sense of sympathy, a sense of outrage, and they feel like, well, okay, if you're going to do that, you're so obsessed with Trump, our support for Trump is going to be stronger than ever. I see, for example, in a guy like Cernovich, a kind of hardening of his support. And he was someone who was on the verge of defecting to DeSantis, but he has pivoted right back into the Trump column. Well, I think one of the things that one of the unfortunate effects of this kind of burning of DeSantis is DeSantis at some point is going to have to reciprocate, attack back. I don't think he's the type of guy who's just going to sort of take it. And that creates a lot of acrimony on the Republican side. Why? Because the ordinary Republican, me included, Debbie included, we like Trump and we like DeSantis. So we don't want to see this kind of, it's not that we don't want to see rivalry. It's not that we don't want to see competition. It's not that we don't want to see policy debate. But this kind of strafing of the other guy, I think, is regrettable coming from either side. And of course, when DeSantis does it, and he's, I think, going to do it, is he's going to say, well, I didn't start it. I was just being the governor, being in my second term, and then along comes Trump, and he keeps attacking me every day. So what do you expect me to do? And in that sense, he would have a point. One of the observations Debbie made the other day, which I think is very valid, is she's like, look, this is also a way for Trump to make enemies. And an enemy here is different than someone who's merely a rival. Think, for example, I think back to 1980, Reagan standing up on the podium. There were like 7 other rivals in New Hampshire. All wanted, of course, to be president, Bush, George H.W. Bush included. And Reagan sparred with all of them, but he never alienated any of them to the point where he couldn't call them up, where he couldn't bring them into the administration. Of course, George H.W. Bush was the second greatest vote getter, and he ended up being the vice presidential nominee. So this is actually the model. I think this is the case. There are some cases in which perhaps Trump has got a new formula that Reagan didn't have, at least Reagan didn't have, applicable to our time. But there are some things that Trump can also learn from Reagan, and this, I think, is one of them.